What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Luca, and we're back with more from the 2023 reissue of the 1987 compilation Substance. Thank you again to Erik. And we're going to listen to State of the Nation as soon as Luca decides where she wants to sit. The chair is a possibility. You could also sit down here, but you should decide at some point. But yes, just to think about the title for a moment, State of the Nation, here in the US it means something very specifically. It is part of the political calendar, if you will. It takes place at the beginning of not only a presidency, but the beginning of a calendar year, and it's where the president addresses Congress and talks about the state of the nation. Now, it can and often is a very partisan type of speech, maybe more so in recent times than it used to be. But of course, it could also relate to genuine issues and situations found throughout the land. So to extrapolate that more generally, the idea of a assessment of what is happening, what should be done, normatively speaking, and what might be possible is surely part of where my brain will go with this. Now, the nation, strictly speaking, modern countries are nation states, and they're even more specifically multi-nation states almost entirely, with a few exceptions. But the idea of a nation is actually more related to anthropology and, ethno-linguistic and cultural groups and origins, such that a nation is like a nation of people. A state is a political entity that a particular nation, or again, more commonly, a number of different nations inhabit. But yes, I don't imagine a anthropological, sociological rendering of the term would be relevant, but I could be wrong. It could just, again, be more about the state of whatever the situation or involvement among people on a smaller scale may be, but I'll see what I can catch on a first listen. This is New Order from the 1987 album Substance, which again suggests that it may be a re-recording. I have come to understand through people's comments that some of the tracks included on this were not the original version of the track, but a re-recorded or reconfigured or rearranged version of the tune. Nevertheless, let's give this a listen. This is State of the Nation by New Order on their 1987 compilation Substance. like that bass line.
From my home, I travel far. I drove in my stolen car. When it broke down, I kissed the ground. 'Cause I don't kiss when you're around. I don't find that I have been the portrait of an only son. If that's the case, then who could tell where my story had begun? 'Cause our nation, that's one of our salvation. Yes, our nation, that's one of our salvation. Yes, our nation, that's causing death and inflation. Oh, yes, our nation, that's causing death and inflation. State of the nation, 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 state of the nation. Even now, I'm all alone behind our wall that's made of stone. I think about where we have been and all the sights that could be seen. I know it all could be worthwhile if only I could force a smile. Now we turn our backs to see the shame of the nation will never be. State of the nation, that's only our salvation. Yes, state of the nation, that's only our salvation. Oh, state of the nation, it's causing death and inflation. Yes, state of the nation, it's causing death and inflation.
Oh. Wow. So, a lot to say. I'll try to talk about the lyrics to the degree I caught them, which was limited, just because some of the lines are still in my head. So, yeah, I mean, we heard reference to, what was it, going on a cruise ship, but also getting in his stolen car, I believe. So it does sound like maybe he's traveling around, though I still feel like the essence of the title phrase is perhaps representative or figurative for a slightly smaller scale than literally traveling around the nation, though that may be part of it in a more literal sense. But then he was saying something about like looking in his brother's face and shaking his head, and then later he was saying he's not the perfect portrait of an only child, which those lines seem to be at odds in terms of, well, if you have a brother then you're not an only child, but maybe brother meaning like other fellow passengers to the grave, other fellow citizens of a nation, and then, you know, only child could be about not seeing things the way most other people do. But then there was a line in the end, I think, where he was like, maybe not hard to believe, but something about being all alone and even like behind a concrete wall or something like that. So again, it feels like there may be some figurative meaning about being like walled off from the way other people experience and see the state of the nation, whether that's more literal or more specific and targeted. But I do enjoy the vocals. Sonically, a lot going on here. First of all, I do love that kick drum, which has that like staggered rhythm where it's like one, like a double hit, a triple hit, one. So it's like, it's still sort of a steady beat, but because it has an evolving or a multifaceted series of hits from the kick drum, it feels a bit syncopated and cycling more than it would if it was just that steady kick drum. And then the big, I don't know if it's like a snare or a clap, but definitely the power of that offset percussive hit relative to the kick drum hit very nicely. And I will say that like the rolling or cycling kick drum, it reminded me a little bit of Blue Monday in terms of, I think it had like a similar rhythm where it's like, it's essentially like a steady beat, but because of the way the kick drum hits, it gives a slightly different feel to it. I enjoy the vocals again. And then we have like some other elements where I wasn't quite sure everything I was hearing. Like I was hearing like this rapid firing and repeating like keyboard run, but then also like a jangly kind of guitar line, I think, but then later seemingly like a bigger and more electric guitar line. So I like the different ingredients as well as the way they were arranged or laid out chronologically, sometimes more intensely all together, especially in what I think was the chorus, and then other times focusing on different elements, especially the bass. I mean, I commented when there was a lot more going on, like, ooh, I like that bass line, and I was thinking a minute later there were like these guitar chord strokes like over the top of the bass line, and that was a nice synthesis or layering. But then that part near the end where the bass line really got its own moment to shine, that was fantastic. And then I have to say, like, the chorus itself, it almost felt like the sonics were a bit like washed out, like a bit overexposed, like brighter than they should be, so to speak. But I think maybe that was part of it, and perhaps in relation, or part of it meaning intentional, maybe in relation to the lyrics, the idea of like everything's a bit too much, or maybe other people are seeing the state of the nation differently than the narrator. So I don't know quite, how that might tie in. But as I said, like certain parts of it felt more or less like straight away as my brain heard them. But when they all flourished together, and especially in the choruses, and also in that last section with that like crazy, I think, electric guitar riff, it felt like it was a bit over bright, overexposed, but maybe on purpose. So yeah, an interesting tune. Definitely one I'm gonna have to re-listen to. I look forward to seeing people's comments and any insight you have about the themes at play here. But ultimately, we are moving toward the end of the compilation, and I wanted to give a shout out not only to Erik for sharing this, but he sent me an email about like what the next step might be. So, as I said, I'm still catching up on emails, but I will get back to you soon, and we will figure out the next steps. But yeah, so Bizarre Love Triangle is coming next, and people who know this channel and who've seen other reactions where love triangles are talked about will know that I've always considered that a bit of a misnomer in general. Maybe not in relation to this song, but oftentimes love triangles are actually love V's, meaning it would only really be a triangle if A likes B, B likes C, and C likes A. Oftentimes it's like B and C both like A, so it's not so much a full-sided triangle. I'll make this point again surely when I react to that tune. But yes, Bizarre Love Triangle, and then True Faith? Yes, True Faith. And then I believe we're done with this compilation, but we'll keep going to New Order as much as I can, so do let me know what you think of this one. And Luca and I Now you can sit in the chair. It's fine. The chair is yours. See? It's simple. In any case, let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.